Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. Good to see you for another virtual coffee hour. I'm State Senator Mallory McMorrow. And for those of you who are new, welcome. This is our virtual coffee hour that we do just about every single week that the Senate is in session. It's something we started doing, frankly, because of the pandemic that has turned into something really fantastic. It's a great way that we can regularly touch base with more of you, people who can't necessarily make it out to a coffee shop at 8 a.m. on a Monday or a weekday. And we toyed around last week with even replaying this coffee hour on a weekend so that we can hit people who aren't able to make it during work hours as well. So just how this works for anybody who is new or needs a reminder, I will do a run through of news you need to know from the state, first of all, and the country, any kind of broad news. Then we'll dive into a legislative update from the Capitol, followed by my favorite news segment, Good News, where we just share some good news out from the district, especially on a Friday, to carry into the weekend. And then we'll open it up for live Q&A. So this is a program that we have streaming live across YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. So if you do have a question, you want to chime in during the Q&A portion, make sure you say your name if that's not obvious with your screen name. It would be great to know what city you're from, and then go ahead and ask your question. And we will have Deb, who's here from my team this week, who will be reading those questions aloud, and then I will answer them. That way, no matter what platform you're on, you have the context, you know the question, you get the answer, and then we'll have that available for anybody to watch anytime with the replay. So a lot of news to share this week, so let's dive right into it. Share my screen here. All right. First and foremost, you may have seen the news this week that the state had previously set a goal of getting 70% of Michiganders eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine to have at least one shot of that coronavirus vaccine. That's what is called the Vac to Normal program. That is an ambitious goal that's set by the state, but frankly, one that we are all working towards, and we're making tremendous progress. So we hit our first milestone as we've worked towards that this week with 55% of eligible Michiganders who have had at least one shot of that COVID-19 vaccine. And what that means is that limitations on in-office or in-person work will be lifted 2 weeks from that milestone. So I believe we hit that goal on May 10th or 11th. Don't quote me on that. We can find out. But 2 weeks from that date, that means that in-office work can resume. Up until this point, the requirement was that any work that can be done remotely is required to be done remotely. And for context, to put that into perspective, my entire staff has been remote since March of last year. And we actually have members who have joined our team who haven't even met the rest of us in person yet. So we know that this is a really exciting way forward. And that is the first milestone. When we hit 60%, sport event capacity limits will increase. 65% additional capacity limits are lifted. And this 70% no more masks, that has changed a little bit today, but we will get into what that means. But awesome work. Right now, Leelanau County is in the lead for the highest percentage of their population vaccinated. Now, Oakland County, we have just much more people than Leelanau. There's over 1 million people in this county. It's a lot harder to get to everybody. But we are also making great progress. I believe last time I checked, we have more than 60% of the population in Oakland County vaccinated. So keep it up, keep going. That the news that the CDC approved the COVID vaccine now for young people 12 to 15 who were not previously eligible is awesome. So help your friends, help your neighbors, go get that vaccine. We are making tremendous progress. Up next, some news on Line 5. Now, a refresher on this, Line 5 is a pipeline that goes through the Straits of Mackinac in the Great Lakes. This is a pipeline that is 68 years old currently, and it carries propane, gasoline under the Great Lakes. It sits on the bottom of the lake bed. This pipeline was designed and built to last 50 years. So we are now 18 years past its planned lifespan. We've seen over the past few years a number of anchor strikes that have hit the pipeline that have caused leaks. And this is by the company Enbridge, who was responsible for the greatest catastrophe in the state of Michigan in Kalamazoo years ago that is still affecting that area and still reeling from that cleanup. So Governor Whitmer had come out recently this past year and said that the state of Michigan will not renew the permit for Enbridge to operate under the Straits of Mackinac. There's going to be about a 3-year gap between when the pipeline is no longer able to operate and the tunnel project. So the tunnel project is still moving forward. For anybody who's been following this story, that would allow Enbridge, and Enbridge would be paying for a new tunnel to be built under the rock bed below the surface of the water. That project is still moving forward. But what this does is say, listen, this pipeline, every day that it continues to operate, is a danger to our fresh water. We know that we in Michigan, we are stewards of not only the country's fresh water, but the world's fresh water. We have more than 85% of the country's fresh water supply in Michigan and more than 21% of the world's fresh water supply. So we've heard a lot in session recently about the impact that shutting down this pipeline would have for the petroleum industry, for some workers. And while I think all of us are sympathetic to that, I think that what often goes undiscussed is how big of a catastrophe it would be for our water supply, for our country. And we've heard testimony from Canada, from our friends in Ohio and neighboring states about the impact of shutting down this pipeline. But what doesn't get answered is if there is a leak or a catastrophe in the Great Lakes, do those states and other countries help us pay for it, or is Michigan on the hook for that? So Enbridge has decided to continue on anyway and continue to operate. This is an issue that will play out in the courts, but the movement on this in the legislature was there was a bill that came up this week that was sponsored by one of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. And the bill purported to require that Michigan taxpayers, through the DNR, through the monies that go to the DNR, would be required to pay Enbridge's legal fees in a lawsuit regarding this pipeline. And that is something I strongly voted no on. I think it is absolutely ridiculous that the state of Michigan would be responsible for paying the legal fees of a Canadian oil company who is using state land and putting our Great Lakes at risk. So that is playing out in the courts, but officially as of this week, the consideration from the state is that Enbridge no longer has the ability to operate this pipeline, and they are effectively trespassing on state land to do so. So we will keep you posted there, but we know this is an issue that many of our constituents are rightly concerned about, is protecting our Great Lakes. All right. Up next, CDC guidance. So I'm sure you all saw the news yesterday. The CDC released updated guidance that says that all fully vaccinated people can now stop wearing masks in most instances, outdoors, indoors, at gatherings, at restaurants. And we immediately heard feedback from people on both sides of this issue. I think after the long, stressful, challenging year we've had, this is an exciting update, but it is also something that causes a lot of anxiety within people. So I would suggest, be patient with people, be kind. I think there are some people who may not be ready quite yet. I am somebody who, I have been very vocal for the past year that we need to follow medical experts, public health experts, and the science. And my understanding is that the CDC was waiting to understand how effective these vaccines were, not only at stopping you from getting COVID-19 and becoming seriously ill from the virus, but also transmission. Transmission was still something that we were learning about. We didn't fully understand. Could you still transmit the virus from one person to another if you had received the COVID vaccine? And my understanding is all of the data and the research is very, very promising right now, where if you are fully vaccinated, you are largely protected from not only contracting COVID-19 and getting sick, but also from transmitting the virus from one person to another. So what this guidance is saying, that if you are fully vaccinated, you've gotten one or both of your shots, depending on which vaccine you have gotten, that you should feel more comfortable going out into the world. Now, what that also means is that for those people who have not been vaccinated yet, there is no longer the expectation that you can rely on everybody else around you to protect you as you would protect them. So the guidance still remains that if you are unvaccinated, that you should continue to wear masks. We know that young people and kids are still largely unvaccinated. We saw during our last spike here in Michigan that we had a record number of kids being hospitalized. It is still something to watch out for. So I can tell you right now, very candidly, I'm going to be exceptionally careful with Noah. My daughter's only 3 months old, so we will be very careful. We haven't been going very, very many places with her to begin with, but we are going to be careful as we go back out there. So that's the news. And then the update from this is the MDHHS and the governor released an update today that says that the state of Michigan will follow this guidance as well. So starting at 9 a.m. tomorrow, this guidance goes into effect in the state of Michigan as well, that if you are fully vaccinated, and that is the caveat, fully vaccinated, you no longer have to wear a mask. But again, a reminder that private businesses have the right to ask for one if that's something that they choose to do. So please be respectful. Please look out for spaces that you enter and how people are interacting. And just, same message we've been saying for the past year, be kind to each other. But this is a huge step forward and just really exciting news about the effectiveness of these vaccines. So again, if you haven't gotten one, if you know somebody who hasn't or they're on the fence, make sure you help them get their appointment. I wanted to share this. I think this was a really helpful graphic that the CDC put out as well. I'm hoping you can see this on the screen. It kind of shows you in very simple graphic form what is safe, medium, and unsafe for unvaccinated people to do. For unvaccinated people, walking, running, wheelchair rolling, or biking outdoors with a member of your household, still very safe. You don't have to wear a mask if you're doing those activities. But if you're unvaccinated, attending a crowded outdoor event like a live performance or a sports event, still very high risk. Dining at an indoor restaurant because of the limited circulation in those spaces, very, very high risk. But if you are fully vaccinated, as you can see now, all of these activities, both indoor and outdoor, are safe for you to commence, which is really exciting. So like I said, really helpful graphic. If you're on the fence or you're somebody like I know a lot of people like me were when I was just out of college and thought I was invincible, getting a vaccine would probably not be the top thing on my agenda. It would be kind of one of those, like, I'll get to it later. Now is the time to do it if you haven't gotten it yet. There's plenty of supply out there, and it's really easy to find a vaccine at vaccines.gov. We showed this last week where you can find a vaccine near you. Next up, we're jumping into updates from the Capitol. So that's our big state news. The updates from the Capitol this week is we are in the throes of the budget process. One of the most important things that the legislature does is appropriate dollars to pass the state budget. The state of Michigan has an approximately $60 billion budget for the approximately 10 million people who live in this state. And that's everything that's running the entire state. The Department of Health and Human Services, corrections, our schools, the funding that comes back from our state taxes to our local municipalities. So that is what is required from us every single year. And when it is budget time, it tends to take up a majority of our agenda and focus. So what I have up here on the screen is what a typical budget process looks like. So in January, the governor has the State of the State address. This was virtual this year, but right around this time is when the governor presents her budget proposal to the legislature and to the state to say, these are my priorities. Here's what I would like to see in a budget. Then the appropriations committees, so these are the committees within the House and Senate that meet and debate putting the budgets together. They all meet and they propose their kind of reaction. So the governor comes out and says, here's what I'd like to see in a budget. The legislature responds. So we are in that phase now where both the House and the Senate have presented their budgets and we voted on them this week. So within the Senate, we voted on the appropriations budgets that came out of many committees. And we will go through what some of that looked like. And then as we move forward into June, budget targets are negotiated between the governor's office and the legislature's committees. July, August, and September, the governor signs appropriation bills and issues vetoes. So she has the authority when the budget bills hit her desk to either sign them, line item veto. There's a lot of leeway that the executive branch has within line item vetoing things in the budget, which effectively sends the message back to the legislature that either we're changing this or it's a try again. You're not quite there yet. Let's keep going. And the negotiations continue. The budget in the state of Michigan is required constitutionally to be signed and in practice by October 1st of each year. One of the things that we have pushed for is we know that schools start building their budgets for the next year on June 1st. So waiting for October is not a healthy time for our schools to be able to plan for the year ahead. So one thing that we have continuously pushed for is to get budgets signed earlier so that schools can plan appropriately. We will keep you posted on what that means. What we also see during a week like this is all of the budget bills come up. We vote on them in the Senate, but we also offer a number of amendments. So I'm going to show you videos right now of two of the amendments that I offered on the floor when the budgets came up. Both of these amendments were rejected, unfortunately, but we can talk about what that means next. So I will play for you one of the videos of an amendment that I offered.
My amendment would restore $25 million for the Mobility Future Initiative as per the governor's recommendation. And this will not be the first time people in this room have heard me talking about the importance of this. There are 4 technologies that are disrupting Michigan's auto supply chain currently: autonomous, connected, shared, and electric. EV sales are set to surpass internal combustion engine sales by 2030. And as I've said before, this is an area where Michigan is currently
One moment, please. Sorry, there was some other live microphones there. President recognizes Senator McMorrow.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I've said before, EV sales are set to surpass internal combustion engine vehicle sales by 2030. Michigan is currently a global leader in this space. But this is an area that is rapidly changing faster than any other time that the industry has before. And we are not only set out to lose our place in leadership to states like California, but to countries like China, who are investing very, very heavily in this space. Smarter infrastructure can reduce accidents up to 90%. We can save lives. And Michigan will need 12,000 people in these skills to retain and grow our position as a global leader in mobility. This program includes such exciting programs as the Lake Michigan EV Circuit, which would put electric vehicle chargers around Lake Michigan and at tourist destinations throughout our state, encouraging green tourism. And also fund the Fleet Transition Program, Flip Your Fleet, encouraging small businesses and schools to switch over to electric school buses, which not only, again, support a critical industry of ours, but also protect kids who are standing at the level of bus exhausts as buses are idling at the end of the day. So this will clean our air. It's an innovative program that Michigan cannot afford to wait on, because this industry, as I've mentioned, is changing more rapidly now than it ever has before.
All right. So that was one amendment. This is something that I have been talking about a lot, is our position as a leader in mobility. I currently serve on the Council of Electrification and Future Mobility, something that I was very proud to be appointed to in the last year. And we offered a number of bills in this space last term. There are $25 million currently in the governor's recommendation for this budget to support this work. And if we don't do this, and my concern is that if we don't do this now, then we are going to fall behind. The automotive industry is our number one industry in the state of Michigan. It employs countless of our residents, from manufacturing up to engineering, design. And as we get into mobility, we need to pivot and evolve to sit with it. So I was disappointed that this amendment failed to put that funding back into the budget, but I am hopeful that negotiations will be ongoing and we'll be able to get this funding in as we move forward. I'll go ahead and share the other amendment that I offered on these budgets.
My amendment restores the governor's proposed $200,000 to increase FTEs in the Office of the Children's Ombudsman. Recently, I read a story of a 4-month-old baby who was abandoned in the woods in Oakland County. Luckily, the child was found alive, but suffering from not enough food, from being cold, and thanks to incredible first responders and a hiker who heard the child crying. And luckily, the child is okay. Horrifying stories like this happen every single day. And colleagues, we're talking about an office that investigates child abuse, neglect, and death. When they don't have enough staff, this translates into fewer cases being investigated. And considering you're also cutting 781 full-time employees from the Department of Health and Human Services, can we really afford to cut here too? Thinking about the lives that are at stake. Michigan is still under federal oversight for failures in our child welfare system. This is an area we must improve. While the OCO is an independent of our state government, they provide another layer of protection for our children to help strengthen our child welfare system, and I ask for your support of this amendment.
So once again, very unfortunate that that amendment failed. For the context of this, this is the Office of the Children's Ombudsman. This is an independent department that investigates child abuse, neglect, and death. It is devastating every time we hear any of these stories. And $200,000 in the context of a $60 billion state budget is a small amount of money that can do a lot of good and save children's lives. Again, I was very disappointed that this amendment failed, but this just gives you a little bit of the flavor of how this process works. We throw things up, they get rejected or they get passed, and we continue to negotiate as we get towards conference committees and towards the governor either signing or vetoing these budget bills. All right, moving into an issue that we have heard no shortage of over the past year, UIA. This week, WXYZ interviewed me for my thoughts on the UIA system, especially knowing that so many people are still struggling with the unemployment system accessing their benefits. So I want to go ahead and share that interview with you.
It's been more than a year since the pandemic began, and despite big changes on the part of the unemployment agency, we're still seeing some of the same problems that plagued the system last spring.
So in tonight's Rebound Detroit, our Amira David takes a closer look at how we got here.
You don't know where you're going to be at the next day. And any given day, if one more thing goes wrong, you're homeless.
For Mom Kelly Martin, each day feels like a roll of the dice. On the day I met her, she was behind on rent, her car tags expired, and her cell phone soon to be cut off.
It's really anxiety-driven.
It's an anxiety that began in February after her attempt to do a simple identity verification update on unemployment benefits hit a technical hiccup that sent her finances into a spiral. And Kelly is far from alone. Elsewhere in Michigan is Linda Tobin.
My credit cards are maxed out. I have a little savings account. That's gone. My credit score is a mess.
Their stories follow countless complaints of delays, errors, and system mishaps the Rebound has been tracking since last spring. But even today, over a year since the pandemic first hit, more than 70% of you tell me in a survey that you're still facing difficulties.
We are experiencing heavy call volumes.
Thousands of Michiganders in desperation, seeking out help from the media, employment aid organizations, and from lawmakers.
In our office alone, have helped almost 1,000 people.
Democratic State Senator Mallory McMorrow says helping frustrated constituents has effectively become a full-time job for her staff.
What does it say to you that people have to turn to their lawmakers to get sometimes a somewhat small issue resolved?
The fact that people have to come to us shows that the system is fundamentally broken.
But how did we get here? Was navigating unemployment always this hard?
All the focus in unemployment was on fraud.
Andy Stetner of think tank The Century Foundation tells me many of the problems go back to 10 years before the pandemic even began. The state prioritizing the root out of fraud, creating a system that often treats a claimant like a suspect.
It was designed to be this way. It is designed to be difficult to access unemployment.
Budgeting, also a factor. Under Governor Snyder's administration, the UIA staff was cut by a third.
There was limited staffing. This is a system, the back end has not been updated, so it's not user-friendly.
But I wanted some perspective on how Michigan stacks up.
In terms of actually paying out benefits, Michigan is doing okay.
When I took a look at the data, surprisingly, I found Michigan ranking in the top 12 best performing states on payouts. However, when you look at the delays, how long it takes for an applicant to get paid, Michigan is one of the worst. Kelly has been playing the waiting game for over 2 months.
I have called and talked to several people.
And despite being on the phone with unemployment right now, she says she gets unhelpful, conflicting information.
You get so many different answers. It's just hard to know what to do.
It's a critique many of you expressed to us in a recent Rebound post. So we questioned the UIA about that allegation, the agency chalking it up to hiring a large amount of people in a short amount of time. Having to administer new programs, they say, sometimes leads to confusion among newer staff members. But for Kelly, struggling to keep a roof over her daughter's head, that answer, simply not good enough.
Constantly being told to just wait. It's no way to live.
We are in the process of trying to get both Kelly and Linda some help. But if you're struggling with an unemployment issue, it's a good idea to reach out to your state rep or congressperson. For the Rebound Detroit, I'm Amira David, 7 Action News.
Thank you.
So I think this points to a critical issue. And there was much more of this interview that Amira and I discussed that was cut due to time. But, the question is, well, how do we fix it? We know it's bad. How do we fix it? And what we saw after the last recession is that the Snyder administration, instead of looking at the challenges in the system, there was a record number of people in the 2008-2009 financial crisis who were applying for unemployment. Rather than repair the system, this state, and frankly, many other states around the country, looked at how do we do this to save money? Because when people are accessing unemployment funds, that's a hit to the state reserves and to the businesses who pay into the unemployment system. But this is a safety net that we depend on, that all of us depend on. We hope we never have to use, but we need it to work when it's there. So it was incredibly challenging that after the Great Recession, the staffing for the unemployment agency was cut by half. And there are multiple stories out there, investigations that show that states intentionally made it harder for people to apply and get benefits because if it's harder, people give up. We know in talking to so many of you that this is unacceptable. You rely on this. You need to get these benefits. Myself and my colleagues have introduced a bill package to fundamentally overhaul this system. The package would include allowing those who are unemployed to access grants while they are waiting for payouts or claims to be processed, allowing workers to collect unemployment during pandemics, lowering the earnings eligibility requirement and increasing the weekly benefit amount. Michigan's current weekly benefit amount is $362. It is one of the lowest in the country. My bill in this package would expand the definition of an eligible worker to include more independent workers or gig workers or those who are self-employed, which we know in our district is many of you who work as a contractor, as a freelancer, work for yourself or in the gig economy and weren't eligible for unemployment until the federal government expanded that during the pandemic. So there are all things that we can do to fix it. And my frustration is that this bill package has not been taken up by the majority. The majority sets the agenda. They decide what bills move through committees. So we offered this up. We want to fix it. But unfortunately, we know in our office, having dealt with so many unemployment claims, and frankly, there are people who email us or call us from all over the state, even people we don't represent looking for help. We have to refer them to their state senators' offices. And we know that there are some legislators who aren't working to help people and instead want to point blame at a broken system or at the governor. And that is just unacceptable to us. So we are working on it. We know that many of you are still waiting and working through this, and we will continue to do our part to improve that system. And just huge thanks, as always, to my staff who have been incredible in trying to help as many people as possible get through this system and get the benefits that you need. All right, we are shifting gears into good news. Good news from our district. These are things that you can take into your weekend with some joy. We are going to start with some new constituents. There are 2 twin polar bears that were born in the Detroit Zoo on November 15th to Mom Suka. They are now 5 months old. They're twin female polar bear cubs, and they were released into the outdoor Arctic Ring of Life habitat and the outdoor habitat for the first time this past week. And I just wanted to play a little video clip of that to welcome our newest constituents. There's no audio with these videos, but it is ridiculously cute. And there is plenty more where that came from if you follow the Detroit Zoo on their Facebook page or Twitter. So congrats to our friends at the Detroit Zoo, and we can't wait to come visit the new cubs in person. Next up, huge congratulations to the city of Royal Oak. The Royal Oak Downtown Development Authority became the only community in Michigan and one of only 6 communities in the entire country to earn a 2021 Main Street Forward Award for Royal Oak's response to the pandemic to help the businesses downtown. They did this in 2 ways. There was a fund that was available for downtown businesses to apply for grants, and every single one of the businesses within the Downtown Development Authority zone who applied was able to receive a grant. And then there was a program called the Royal Oak Downtown Dollars, Royal Oak Bucks. If you've been in the community Facebook pages, you've seen this, where in exchange for signing up to the Royal Oak email newsletter, residents could get a $20 gift card, a digital gift card that you could use at many participating businesses in downtown Royal Oak. And not only did this give people 20 free bucks to spend downtown, but businesses reported that this actually helped grow their customer base. There are people who, yes, came into a store maybe for the first time because they got 20 free dollars to spend, but then started to come back. And Rail and Anchor, which is a great shop in downtown Royal Oak, reported that they actually saw a 20% increase in sales year over year and have built new customer bases. So this is not only just helping a lot of businesses survive the pandemic, but also growing our downtown community as well. So congrats to Royal Oak and to the Downtown Development Authority on this huge award. And then unsurprisingly, and in a bit of sad news for Royal Oak, but good news for our district as a whole, Sean Kammer, who's the Downtown Development Authority director for Royal Oak, is leaving to take on a new challenge as the director of the Birmingham Shopping District. So he's not going too far away from us staying in our district, but really exciting news for Sean. Congratulations, Sean, on this project, and we can't wait to see what you do in Birmingham. And then last but not least, for good news, and we will jump into Q&A, wanted to highlight one resident who is using her challenges to help others. Molly Marco, who survived brain cancer. She had brain cancer. She went through treatment and is now, thankfully and healthfully, on the other side of it. She is now using her position to help others. So she has partnered with 2 local coffee shops to help raise funds for future brain cancer patients through the Hermelin Brain Tumor Center at Henry Ford. Desert Oasis in Royal Oak and Sabbath Coffee Roasters in Clawson are both donating $5 each from select bags of coffee beans to this great cause. And it is a reminder for me again that I need to get out to Sabbath Coffee Roasters. I haven't been there yet. I was really excited that you guys opened during the pandemic, and I can't wait to pop in and say hello and check you out. I have been to Desert Oasis and love it. So it's really exciting to see somebody turn a challenging portion of their life into paying it forward and benefiting those in our community. And with that, I'm going to bring on Deb, and we will kick it over to Q&A. So a reminder for anybody watching, if you have any questions, you can pop in on any of the platforms that you are in. So Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, whichever one works, and ask your question there. Again, if your username doesn't make it obvious, please say your name, where you're from, and then go ahead and ask your question. So Deb, do we have any questions sitting in the chats?
Not yet.
Not yet. All right. And
So,
listen,
get them in.
it is beautiful outside today. So if y'all are like, listen, today I'm not going to do it and I'm just going to go outside, I do not blame you. So one last call for questions or comments. We'll give it a few seconds and then we will let everybody get on to their weekend. Anybody? Anybody? Drum roll. No questions. Thanks, Deb, for facilitating Q&A.
Sure thing.
All right. And with that, I'm going to leave you with something a little bit fun that I really love that I X'd out of. Hold on. Bear with me. The suspense is killing you. You're like, whatever this is, better be like really ridiculously fun that you're making us wait for it.
Ladies and gentlemen, the weekend. Ladies and gentlemen,